Have you ever had this eerie feeling? When you look at an idol you followed for over a decade, a sudden thought flashes through your mind. Is this really him? The facial features are the same ones you know so well, but the light in the eyes, the tone of voice, even those unconscious little gestures all carry a sense of strangeness you can't quite explain. Many people brush this off by saying the celebrity has grown up, had plastic surgery, or changed their image. But in the darker corners of the internet, a global urban legend that has circulated for more than half a century is quietly fermenting in countless late nights. It claims that those superstars you followed for 10, even 20 years may have died long ago. The person now standing under the spotlight, holding multi-million-dollar endorsements and singing the songs you know by heart while raking in money, is said to be a stand-in crafted by powerful capital forces, or even a clone. If you were born in the 1990s, there was definitely a girl like this living in your youth. Heavy smoky eye makeup, faded canvas sneakers, ripped jeans, a guitar always in her arms. She sang about teenage rebellion and confusion. She was Avril Lavigne, the most legendary punk princess of the 21st century. Back in 2002, a 17-year-old Canadian girl named Avril burst onto the scene with her debut album, Let Go. The lead single complicated top music charts in more than 20 countries. The album went on to sell over 16 million copies worldwide, setting the highest debut album sales record for a female artist in the 21st century. At a time when a Britney-style sweet and bubbly image was sweeping the world, represented by Britney Spears, Avril was a complete outlier. In interviews, she said bluntly, "I will never wear pink. That's for little girls who want to please the world. I hate skirts. I hate changing myself to satisfy others. I am who I am, and I won't compromise for anyone." Those words turned Avril into a youth icon for countless people born in the 90s. But no one expected that this dazzling legend would hit a strange turning point in 2003. From that moment on, everything seemed to change, and her path veered in a completely different direction. In 2003, Avril Lavigne's closest grandfather suddenly passed away. He was the one who had been by her side since childhood, and the only person who truly supported her singing. He was the emotional pillar of her entire adolescence. Before she debuted, it was her grandfather who took her to bars to perform, saved money to buy her first guitar, and supported her every step of the way. She once said in an interview, with tears in her eyes, "Without my grandfather, there would be no me today." When her grandfather died, Avril was in the middle of a world tour. She immediately canceled the next 3 concerts and flew back to Canada for the funeral. In the months that followed, she completely disappeared from the public eye. At the time, the media captured only a few rare appearances of her. She was extremely thin and almost unrecognizable. Her eyes looked empty, and her mental state was very poor. Some tabloids reported that she was repeatedly seen getting drunk in bars, emotionally collapsing and crying in public. Anonymous employees from her record label also revealed that Avril was suffering from severe depression and had attempted suicide multiple times, only to be stopped by people around her. Just as everyone was waiting for the punk princess to come out of the darkness, something strange happened. In 2004, after nearly a year of disappearance, Avril returned with her second album, Under My Skin. But the moment fans saw her, they felt something was wrong. This feeling was not simply that she had grown up. It was a complete overturning, from her persona to her physical traits, from muscle memory to her words and behavior. The first thing to collapse was her public image. Early Avril's core image was anti-sweet and anti-conformity. Her wardrobe consisted only of dark punk outfits, ripped pants, and canvas sneakers. She openly expressed her hatred of pink, skirts, and high heels countless times. She even once slammed the door and refused to continue recording a show because a stylist had prepared a dress for her. But after her return in 2004, her style made a 180-degree turn. During the girlfriend era in 2007, she wore pink sequin dresses, stepped into 10-centimeter high heels, and performed sweet, girlish dances similar to those of Korean girl groups at the time. She even shot many revealing, sexy photo shoots, completely abandoning the punk image she had upheld for years. What felt most chilling were the physical differences that plastic surgery is said to be unable to change. Early Avril had a typical square face. Her jawline was sharp, her masseter muscles were prominent, and there was a very obvious hump on her nose bridge. This was one of her most distinctive facial features. But after 2004, her jawline suddenly became a smooth, pointed shape. The hump on her nose bridge completely disappeared. The entire bone structure of her face seemed to change. Even stranger was her height. Avril's official height had always been listed as 155 centimeters. In 2002, when she stood next to another singer who was also 155 centimeters, they were exactly the same height. But after 2004, when she stood next to the same person again, she appeared to be 2 to 3 centimeters taller. There was also the birthmark on her arm. In high-definition photos from her 2002 concerts, Avril had an irregular oval-shaped birthmark slightly above the inside of her left wrist. This detail can be confirmed in countless live photos, but after 2004, this birthmark either completely disappeared or its position shifted lower on her wrist and its shape changed noticeably. There was also a complete overturning of Avril Lavigne's handwriting and signature. An adult's writing habits are a form of long-term muscle memory. Unless there is severe neurological damage to the brain, they are almost impossible to change completely. Yet around 2003, Avril's signature underwent a dramatic transformation. From 2002 to 2003, Avril's real signature was smooth and continuous, with a strong sense of casual graffiti. The initial letter A always started with a downward stroke, and the lines were bold and expressive. But after 2004, her signature became extremely neat and rigid. The initial A started upward instead, and even her letter-connecting habits were completely reversed. Professional handwriting experts overseas have compared her signatures. Their conclusion was that these two signatures were very likely written by two completely different people. Finally, some fans claimed they had discovered distress signals hidden by Avril in her lyrics and interviews. Conspiracy theorists firmly believe that Melissa, the person said to have replaced Avril, has lived in constant fear. Because of this, they claim she secretly left countless calls for help in songs and interviews. On the 2004 album Under My Skin, the lyrics of Together say, "I look at myself in the mirror and don't recognize that face. I am not me and you are not you. We are all living in lies." In My Happy Ending, she sings, "Everything has changed. I don't even recognize myself anymore." And in the 2007 song Innocence, the lyrics are even more direct. "I'm standing here, but I'm not the real me. I'm trapped in a body that doesn't belong to me." What made people even more uneasy was an interview in 2011. The reporter asked Avril directly, "There are countless people online saying you're not the real Avril and that the real Avril died long ago. What do you think about that?" In the interview, Avril froze instantly. Her eyes darted around, her fingers subconsciously picked at the corner of her clothes, and her whole body fell into visible panic. After stammering for several seconds, she forced out, This is ridiculous. Of course I'm me." She then immediately cut off the reporter and changed the subject. This reaction made many conspiracy theorists even more convinced that she was lying. As a result, some people pieced together these strange clues and became convinced that the real Avril died in 2003. They believe she hanged herself at home after the devastating blow of her grandfather's death. The Avril we see today, they claim, is a stand-in carefully chosen by the record label, a woman named Melissa Vandella. In 2012, an anonymous user on 4chan, claiming to be a former employee of Avril Lavigne's record label, revealed even more shocking details. According to this user, Melissa Vandella was originally Avril's backup singer and a winner of an Avril lookalike contest. Her voice and appearance were said to be highly similar to the original. At first, the label only used her as a stand-in to handle appearances Avril didn't want to attend, such as minor commercial shows, interviews, or risky shoots. After Avril allegedly took her own life, the label decided to protect a multi-billion-dollar IP. They reportedly let Melissa fully replace Avril's identity. She underwent minor cosmetic adjustments and more than 6 months of intensive training. In the end, she was said to have completely taken over Avril's life. To this day, this rumor has circulated for 20 years. Countless people still believe that the person on stage now has never been that 17-year-old punk princess. If the Avril replacement rumor is a mass internet spectacle, then the Paul McCartney replacement conspiracy is the oldest, most influential, and most chilling urban legend in music history. It has been circulating for nearly 60 years and remains a classic among conspiracy theory enthusiasts worldwide. As a core member of the Beatles, Paul was the band's bassist and the creator of timeless classics like Hey Jude and Yesterday. In the 1960s, the Beatles were a global cultural symbol. When they entered the US market, they once occupied all top 5 spots on the Billboard chart. That record has never been broken. Rumors claim that the real Paul died instantly in a car accident on November 9, 1966. The Paul we see today is said to be a replacement arranged by British intelligence and the record label. He was allegedly an orphan named William Campbell. According to the whistleblower, in the early hours of November 9, 1966, the Beatles were recording a new album at Abbey Road Studios. The album was Sgt. Pepper. At that time, tensions within the band had reached a breaking point. John Lennon and Paul reportedly had their fiercest argument ever over creative direction. Lennon accused Paul of turning the Beatles into a commercial product. Paul accused Lennon of being irresponsible and addicted to drugs. The fight escalated until Paul stormed out, got into his Aston Martin sports car, and disappeared into the London night. In an emotional state, Paul allegedly drove at over 100 miles per hour on the M1 motorway. While trying to avoid a little girl who suddenly ran into the road, he swerved and crashed into a tree. He reportedly died on the spot with severe head injuries. After the accident, London police sealed off the scene immediately. Soon after, the case was taken over entirely by MI5. Both the authorities and the record label panicked. The Beatles were Britain's cultural calling card and the emotional anchor for tens of millions of fans worldwide. If Paul's death were made public, it was believed it could trigger mass fan suicides and even social unrest. As a result, a shocking plan was formed. The news of Paul's death would be completely suppressed. A perfect stand-in would replace him, allowing the Beatles to continue to exist. As a result, they quickly found William Campbell. He was the champion of a Beatles impersonation contest in the UK. His appearance was almost identical to Paul's. His voice was also extremely similar. Even his bass-playing technique closely matched Paul's. MI5 took William away directly. He underwent full cosmetic surgery to adjust subtle facial differences. He then went through months of intensive training. He was taught to imitate Paul's mannerisms, speech patterns, and accent. The goal was to make him indistinguishable from the real Paul. By the end of 1966, Paul reappeared in public. Other than the remaining 3 band members and a very small group of insiders, no one noticed anything wrong. No one realized that the man standing in the Beatles was no longer the original Paul. However, the other 3 members were filled with guilt over Paul's death. They did not want the secret to be buried forever. Starting with the 1967 album Sgt. Pepper, they allegedly planted numerous death codes. These appeared in every album, every song, and even every cover. They were meant to hint to the world that Paul was dead and that the current one was fake. The most classic piece of hard evidence comes from the cover of the 1969 album Abbey Road. This cover, one of the most famous in music history, is seen by some as a complete Western-style funeral. On the cover, the 4 Beatles walk in a line across a zebra crossing. Their order and clothing are said to be symbolic. The first is John Lennon, dressed in a pure white suit. This is said to represent a priest leading a funeral. The second is Ringo Starr, wearing a formal black suit. He represents a mourner or family member. The third is Paul. He is barefoot and dressed in a black suit. His step is opposite to the others. The other 3 step forward with their left foot first. Only he steps forward with his right. In Western funeral customs, the dead are buried without shoes, and their steps are opposite to those of the living. The last is George Harrison, dressed in denim. He is said to represent the gravedigger. Paul's first album after the car accident, Sgt. Pepper, is also filled with death symbolism on its cover. In the lower left corner, yellow flowers form the shape of Paul's iconic bass guitar. On a small sign beside the flowers, the words "Paul is dead" are clearly spelled out using flowers. In the photo inside the album, the other three members face the camera directly. Only Paul turns his body slightly and lowers his head. He avoids looking straight into the lens. On his left arm, he wears a black armband with the letters OPD in capital letters. Conspiracy theorists claim this stands for officially pronounced dead. Before 1966, Paul was a true left-hander. He played a custom left-handed bass. He always fretted with his left hand and plucked with his right. This habit appeared in all his early performances. After 1966, however, many live videos show Paul playing awkwardly. In some clips, he even frets with his right hand and plucks with his left. This completely contradicts left-handed muscle memory. There is also his signature tooth gap. Before 1966, Paul had a very obvious gap between his front teeth. This feature is clearly visible in all his early photos and videos. After 1966, the gap completely disappeared. Subtle but noticeable changes also appeared in his brow ridge, jawline, and ear shape. Even more chilling were the reactions of Paul McCartney's family. After 1966, Paul's father, Jim McCartney, rarely met with Paul. In one interview, a reporter asked him, "Do you think your son has changed a lot recently?" Jim blurted out, "Him? He's not my son." He immediately corrected himself, smiled, and said, "I'm joking. He's just grown up." Paul's brother, Mike McCartney, almost never appeared in public with Paul after 1966. In his autobiography, he barely mentioned Paul at all after that year. At this point, you might ask, was it really worth all this effort? Finding a stand-in, doing plastic surgery, and deceiving the entire world for decades? Was it necessary? Couldn't Capitol simply promote a new star instead? The answer is brutally simple. In the eyes of Capitol, a top superstar is never a person. It is a multinational business with annual revenue of tens of billions of dollars. It is a money-printing machine that never stops. We can do the most straightforward calculation. In 2002, when Avril Lavigne debuted, just one album, Let Go, brought the record label more than $160 million in profit. This does not include income from tours, endorsements, merchandise, or licensing. At the time, the label had planned at least a 10-year commercial roadmap for Avril, with projected total revenue exceeding $1 billion. So what happens if Avril dies at that moment? If the death were made public, this cash cow would collapse instantly. Tens of millions of dollars already spent on promotion would be wasted. Concert organizers and brands with contracts would demand compensation. Breach of contract penalties could reach hundreds of millions of dollars. The entire company could even go bankrupt. But what if a stand-in were used instead? For just a few $1,000,000, the label could pay for cosmetic surgery and special training. The money-printing machine could keep running. It could continue generating tens of billions of dollars. As long as the truth stayed hidden from the world, the return would be enormous. You might say that new artists can be made into stars too. But do you know how hard it is to create a truly global superstar? According to internal data from major Hollywood record labels, it takes an average of 5 to 8 years for a newcomer to go from signing a contract to becoming a top-tier global singer. It requires at least $300 to $500 million in marketing and promotion. The success rate is still under 1%. In other words, you could invest $500 million and most likely hear nothing back at all. But a ready-made, market-tested top-tier IP only needs one part replaced to keep making money. There is no need to retrain it. There is no need to take the risk of failure. Faced with that choice, what would Capitol choose? The answer is obvious. That is why stand-in conspiracy theories are never isolated cases. They have swept across the entire Western entertainment industry. Beyond Avril Lavigne and Paul McCartney, countless legendary stars have been pulled into similar rumors. These include Michael Jackson, Marilyn Monroe, and Elvis Presley. Conspiracy theorists believe that Monroe was assassinated after learning secrets of the Kennedy family, and that the U.S. government used a stand-in to deceive the public. They also believe that Michael Jackson died in the 1990s due to health issues, and that what we later saw were multiple stand-ins arranged by Capitol. As technology advances, this kind of replacement becomes easier and more seamless. In 1996, Dolly was born, marking the full maturity of cloning technology. Conspiracy theorists believe that top financial elites have long mastered human cloning. Because of ethical concerns, they do not make it public. In private, they are said to have cloned countless backups for top stars and political figures, ready to replace them at any time. Now, modern AI technology makes it possible to replace even the human body itself. Deepfake face swapping can perfectly transplant one person's face onto another. Facial expressions and eye movements look flawless, and the AI voice cloning technology can precisely replicate anyone's voice. Even tone and verbal habits can be copied. Hologram technology is also long mature. In 2012, at the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival, organizers used hologram projection to bring back Tupac, who had been dead for 16 years. On stage, he sang, danced, and interacted with the crowd like a real person. Tens of thousands in the audience broke down in tears. With technology already this advanced, you no longer even need a real stand-in. With AI and holograms alone, a deceased superstar can live forever under the spotlight and keep making money for capital. Knowing this, do those stand-in conspiracy theories still sound like pure madness to you?